Hey, it's David Jenyns, and I'm on the Prosperity Show, and we covered some awesome stuff that you are going to want to tune in and listen to. We talk about how businesses, a lot of them are broken because they depend on the business owner. We give some real clear steps on how you can get out of the day-to-day operations so you can start to work on your business rather than in it. So you're going to absolutely love this episode. Tune in and share your results.
Now, have you ever felt like your business would fall apart if you maybe took a week off or just an afternoon off? Yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And for those that are tuning in, welcome to the Online Prosperity Show, the number one place where we unpack real strategies, stories, and systems to help you build a business that runs without you, not because of you. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we're joined by somebody who quite literally wrote the book on systems. Now, Dave, how are you doing today?
Hey, Prosper. I'm doing well. Really looking forward to this call.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all mine. We've read all about you, heard all about you. And today we're going to be hearing it all from the horse's mouth. And for those that are meeting Dave for the very first time, you are going to appreciate that Dave is no ordinary entrepreneur. He's the man who has actually sold the Melbourne Cricket Ground while during his 20s, and we're going to be hearing about that. And he also systemized himself out of a very successful digital agency, and now he helps business owners to free themselves from the daily grind. And today we're going to be talking about freedom, control, and the art of actually letting go and how to stop being the bottleneck in your business and to actually reclaim your time. So I want you to stick around because I want you to also hear Dave's little dirty secrets about why systems is actually one of the things he despises, and he doesn't actually like documentation. So we're going to hear all about that. And for those that are obviously dreaming of stepping away from your business and having it run like a well-oiled machine, I think this episode is going to be for you. So don't forget to hit subscribe, especially on Spotify or wherever it is that you're tuning in from, as you don't want to miss what we're going to be talking about today. Now, Dave, I could go on, and maybe your system is already putting out all the, alerts saying, hey, is this what you're supposed to be doing with your time? Tell us a little bit about your journey. And obviously, you once sold the Melbourne Cricket Ground. What's that all about?
Yes, maybe that's where we start. That was a lifetime ago now. I remember reading a book called The 1 Minute Millionaire, and it told the story of a guy called Paul Hartunian who sold the Brooklyn Bridge in the US. And he got his hands on a bunch of discarded wood from this bridge they were doing some renovations on, wrote a press release, chopped it up into little pieces, and sold off little pieces of the Brooklyn Bridge. I just read that story. I was driving past the Melbourne Cricket Ground here in Melbourne, and in Australia we're a little bit sporting mad, and the MCG is like our church of sport, and it was like fireworks in my brain went off, and I thought, I can replicate what Paul did for the MCG. And I contacted the people that were doing the renovations. I got my hands on a bunch of the discarded wood from the MCG, and then I chopped it into little pieces. I stuck it to some certificate paper. I wrote out a press release saying Melbourne Man sells the MCG for $24.95, and then it got picked up in the newspapers, on the radio, on the TV, and I basically sold the MCG that way. That was me fresh out of high school, just ready to take on the world, and I just saw my opportunity and took it.
Oh, absolutely. And it takes a redemptive amount of belief in yourself to see an idea and then just run with it and things like that. Is that where the statement, if you believe what I'm saying, I've got a breach to sell you comes from.
It might be. I'm not too sure exactly where that statement came from, but yeah, perhaps it was a funny story that kind of became a little bit legend over in the US and obviously made its way into a lot of different self-help and self-development books, and it's just the right message at the right time for me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And were there any takers? Did people actually buy the MCG, or is it now a collector's item? Can people find those pieces of wood somewhere?
Yes. So I bought quite a lot and I have a little bit still stored at mum's house, but I sold a truckload. I also got my hands on some of the carpet, which had this special MCC logo on it, and we chopped that up and we put it into frames and sold that for top dollar. All of those went, and a huge number of the $25 certificates went. So it was funny though. I learned that was more like a promotion rather than a business. I sold them and I made a little bit of money, but I didn't have any back end products and services to continue to sell the person who bought a piece of the MCG. And that, as I said, was really just the starting point. And then I've started to realize, oh, there's a lot more to this game of business than just getting someone to buy.
Absolutely. I like how you made that distinction, because so many people are up there selling things, but as you have said, there's a difference between a promotion and a business. I want us to just maybe focus on that a little bit. Define what you call a business, because you've gone on and built and sold multiple businesses, and now you've got a system around that. So,
Yeah.
for those that are not quite versed with that distinction.
Yes. So I love the distinction an Australian entrepreneur gave it, Brad Sugars. He calls it a profitable enterprise that works without me.
Yeah.
And there's probably a couple of additional elements I would add in. The main one being that it needs to be repeatable. So you want the business to have recurring clients that are coming back, that are happy with your products and services, that will refer friends and family, and will help you to continue to grow, and ideally something that can work without key person dependency. So the aim of the game here is we need to be able to get the business to a point where it can make money regardless of who's working in it.
Absolutely. I like that. The one that you're talking about, a profitable enterprise that works sort of without you. So before you even ventured into what you're now doing, which is systemology, we've already established you'd already built and sold multiple businesses. What sort of businesses were those that you went on and got yourself involved in?
So I've had a few over the years. One of the early ones was a rock and roll clothing music store that we franchised. So that was one of the first businesses. We had 3 retail stores. We'd franchised one of them. I think that was one of my first real baptisms in this whole idea of systemization, because when you franchise a business, you need to have a franchisee manual. That's effectively what the person's buying, and the business needs to run and work, and something that someone else can follow the systems with. So that was my first business there. After that, there was the digital agency where we helped businesses get found online. We also had a video production business as part of that business also. And, in each business, you learn something. It was funny, the last business, the digital agency, was the one that caught me trapped probably for the longest. The first business with the rock and roll clothing music store, we built it where it was very clear that we weren't going to work in it. But when I got to the digital agency, for some reason, that business, I said, oh, this business is different. I'm the guy innovating and learning all of the new trends, and I'm doing the marketing. So I was involved in marketing, sales, and then I was also helping out with customers when they had problems. And I thought I needed to be the one to answer some of those questions, because I'm the knight in shining armor. When the team had a problem, they would come to me. And I just trained them that, Dave's always got the answer. And even though I'd systemized other businesses and built them and sold them and realized that systems were the way, that last business, I ended up creating a prison for myself. I couldn't step away. And I think that's really what gave the inspiration for Systemology, was because even with all of the right information, even with knowing I needed to build systems, even having done it before, I still got caught in the trap in that last business. And when I found out we were pregnant, I thought, nah, things need to change. I don't want to be that dad who's too busy and working very, very long hours. And I started to rethink my business, question some of the assumptions I'd made, and I rebuilt that business. And that was a big part of what became the birth of Systemology. When I stepped out, I took some time off for a year, just at the birth of my youngest son. And that's when I realized this is a problem that's been around since the dawn of time and is likely not to go anytime soon, where business owners just become their business and they don't know how to separate themselves from the doing of the work. And I'm going to help them solve that. And that's really what Systemology is about.
And thank you so much. And congratulations. I mean, not a lot of people get to see that, they're actually trapped up until something external comes in. Like you said, the birth of your children and things of that nature. Now, as we are mentioning, you did say you were the key person of the business, which obviously you were the engineer, the mind, everything else that was happening. But we all know you can't climb the ladder of success with your hands full. Now, a lot of businesses are stuck in this loop. They're overworked, they're under-rested, and they just can't step away. Is there an initial sort of system that you can suggest that people can actually start creating, that they can start freeing themselves?
We identify, and we've got a tool we talk about in the book called the critical client flow. And the whole purpose of that tool is to identify what are the first 10 systems that you want to document. And it all comes around and centers around how you deliver your core products or services. How do you get the attention of your clients? How do you sell to them? How do you onboard? How do you deliver? And how do you get them to come back? It's identification of those top level systems is a great starting point. And then you can lean into it even further and say, where within the critical client flow is the pain? And you might go, I don't have enough customers. Okay, we'll work on your lead generation systems. You might say, I have trouble just managing the clients. Okay, well, it's the client fulfillment systems that you need to work on. So generally, that's how we get started. There is one system we also talk about, which you just need to have in place. We call it our system for creating systems. It's how do you document best practice? Because that's all we're talking about, which is how do we find out what is the secret sauce in your business? Let's capture that so that it can be transferable and teachable.
You see, the one thing that normally happens, like you said, when you're the person who starts this business, it becomes your baby. You become very emotionally invested and it becomes sort of your identity. And I feel like one of the things that a lot of people have is letting go of that control once the system is there. What did that look like emotionally for yourself, so that we can understand how you then managed to get past this?
Most businesses are broken because of that dependency we're talking about. The only reason their business works is because the business owner works. So, in effect, the business is more of a job than it is a business. A business being a profitable enterprise that works without you. So, it's hard for a lot of business owners because they know how to do the technical work. They're the landscape gardener, they're the plumber, they're the lawyer, they're the accountant. So they know how to do that technical work and they build up their business doing the technical work. So it's that transition that we're talking about that is so challenging, because we're talking about running a business that does the work, not necessarily you doing the work. And there are different skills there. Oftentimes, a lot of someone's identity is tied to them doing the work. And we are talking about changing your identity. So for me, when I did it, it was challenging. I had the good fortune of having some previous businesses where I'd built them to a point where I wasn't doing the work. So for example, like the video production business, I'm not a videographer. I don't know how to run the camera. I don't know how to do the editing. And that ended up being a blessing because it meant I couldn't step in and do the work. So for a lot of businesses, if you can get the business owner off the tools, they will have to start to change their identity and think about their place inside the business. There's always work to be done. It's just we need to make sure the business owner is doing the highest value work, which is rarely the technical work.
You see, there's statements like, if you want anything done properly, you do it yourself. And I think that is what a lot of entrepreneurs hang on to, because they've had a track record of being successful and they can back themselves up based on what it is that they have done prior. Now, is there a particular maybe hire or maybe a process that you then went on to, and then you decided, you know what, I think this might actually work, and you actually started letting go and nothing broke? Or have you ever seen in the movies where you walk out of a building and then everything just starts
Yes.
explosion and things like that?
Yeah. I think most business owners get into business for freedom. They don't get in there to be chained and trapped to the business. So the business owner wants this. They just don't know how to get there. And a big part of it is they want things done to a certain standard. And that's why they micromanage and look over the top, because their business is successful because they've micromanaged, because they've delivered to a certain standard. So all of those behaviors get reinforced. The only way that a business owner can feel confident that someone is going to do something to the standard that they want is to define what that standard is. And that's why systems and processes become so key here, because that is the way in which you identify the way you want things done. And actually capturing best practice and putting it in a central location and ensuring that you share and train your team on that best practice is the first step to being able to let go. Because I can then have the confidence to say, well, I've told you how I want something done. I've told you what it should look like when it's complete. I've outlined to you what my expectations are. It's much easier for the business owner to let go at that point. And especially if you're building a transparent organization where everything happens out in the open. Once things are documented, it's easier for other team members to say, that's Jenny's job. And this is the way that Jenny's supposed to do it. She's got this checklist that she follows. It changes the organization into more of a transparent, accountable organization. So that would be the stepping stone, is to first capture what you're currently doing.
You see, I read somewhere that people don't see systems, they see good service. And if you have that documented, it will be just like you walk into any McDonald's, and no matter where you look, they will give you exactly the same thing that you get at a different McDonald's, because the systems have been put in place that even the least capable person will just have to follow some steps, and they'll be able to actually do it in perfectness. I mean, obviously I just said least capable, but the person who has to actually but
yes.
But what's your take to that?
I think that business is a collection of systems.
Mm-hmm.
I think you want to identify the things that you want to have done to a particular standard, and then you want to recruit great team members to then follow those processes. And because business has these different stages that you go through, that first stage is the business owners figuring it out. They have to be involved in everything and they make stuff up as they go. Then we start to capture it and make it repeatable and delegatable, and we start to plug other team members in behind them. And the reality is your clients crave consistency. They don't necessarily want or need the best. And that example of McDonald's is a really good one, because McDonald's doesn't make the best hamburger, it just makes the most consistent hamburger. So people don't always crave the best, they crave consistency over the quality. So I'm not suggesting that you don't want to deliver to a great standard, but I'm suggesting that you figure out, well, who already does the thing pretty well, capture that, and then make that repeatable. And systems is never, you don't get to the end and go, oh, I'm done, I've systemized my business. This is a way of thinking. It's a way of building your business. It's involved in the way that you recruit and onboard your team members, and you're indoctrinating your team into this way of thinking, which is, we have a way of doing business, we make it repeatable, and we're constantly improving and changing things. McDonald's, their system that they started 60 years ago will look very different to their system today. They'll continue to innovate and change and build. That's part of this systems approach.
I like that, because, whenever you come across something within your business, you could always find where the system fell short, and then you make sure that that doesn't sort of happen again. And then that's the sort of constant improvement. But, like you said, McDonald's doesn't bring out the best burger. Now, there's a myth amongst entrepreneurs that say systems actually kill creativity, because then it just leaves that rigid way of doing things, like you don't pretty much go outside the scope of what is mandated by the system. What would you say to entrepreneurs who fear that they might lose their magic, in quotes, if they actually standardize their processes?
I used to work in a very creative business, video production, and you would think on that line of thinking that the systems approach wouldn't work, and it would mean that you wouldn't be able to create very creative videos if you were heavily systems driven. I had an experience that actually made me realize the opposite is true. So one day I went on a shoot with my videographer. We spent 45 minutes in the car, and on the way he said, "Oh, did I pack the spare battery? Did I get the extension cord? Did we email the client to let them know not to wear checkered shirts because it doesn't look very good on screen?" And there was a list of about 40 different items that he went through, almost like a mental checklist. And at the end of that shoot, I said to him, look, next time we're going to create a pre-shoot checklist. And the night before, you're going to work through it, and you're going to make sure that you've got your spare batteries and your extension cables, and you pack it in the night before, so you don't need to think about it. About 6 months later, I go on another shoot with him, and the experience I had was very different. We started talking about the scenes he wanted to create, the emotion he wanted to get across from the actors, what the script was and how he might like to tweak it. All of the creative things now had space to surface, because he didn't have to think about the spare battery. He didn't have to think about emailing the client. And that taught me an extremely valuable lesson. There are certain things in business that have to happen a certain way, and you want to have those handled by a system. And then everything else, we leave space for the creativity. So systems allow team members to do some of their best work because they have space to think about the creativeness.
I like that, because right now your heart is pumping. and you don't have to worry about that. Can you imagine if you had to do everything so that your body functions? Oh, we need to digest last
Yes.
night's dinner and swallow now so that everything starts happening so I can hear what David is saying. That will be exhausting, and the system just takes care of the things behind the scenes without you
Yes.
having to worry about that. Now, but I've got to ask David. I mean, I've seen somewhere where it says you're a systems guy, but you actually hate documentation. Now, how do you reconcile that, and how does that sort of shape the person you are today?
I have fallen in love with systems for a different reason than a lot of business owners would think. It's like you said, I don't like documenting, but rather I've fallen in love with what the systems bring to a business and the transformation they can have. I've seen businesses with systems and businesses without, and they're night and day difference. So that's what I've fallen in love with, not the documentation. I had the good fortune, I talk about it in the book Systemology, of working with Michael Gerber. And just recently, actually, I released an interview with him, and I asked him the question, which I already knew the answer to because I learnt it doing some work with him. And it was that he doesn't document any of his processes. So Michael Gerber is the godfather of business systems. He wrote a book called The E-Myth. A lot of people recognize the book, and he doesn't document processes. And it's almost like I got, when I discovered that, permission to go, it's actually normal for business owners to not be the ones documenting process. And that's okay. They just have to appreciate the value of it. They have to recruit the right team members that follow process and like documenting process to almost make up for where they're not strong. A lot of business owners are visionaries, they're creatives, they're not detail-oriented people, and that's okay. You just want to make sure that you've got a yin to your yang, and you do have team members who do love process and can help to document it. So, I mean, fortunately, though, we're in an interesting time at the moment with AI, and it's now making it easy for people to document process, even if you don't like process as well. So I'm seeing a lot more business owners get more involved in it than they ever have because they can now use technology to make it happen.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to go there a little bit later on because now people can actually just talk to whatever their language learning model of choice, and it can actually just sprite out, given steps that they need to be doing. But does that not sort of take away from there's this bias of your mind knowing that you have created something, and if something just is easy to do, it's easy not to do as well.
Yeah. Look, business is challenging and there are so many different tasks that need to be done. And with the landscape changing so quickly, it's very hard for business owners to know where to focus and what to work on because there's an infinite number of choice. The good thing is systems and processes are almost like a master skill. They are the core skill of business, which is to identify best practice and then make that transferable. That's all we're really doing in business. We're capturing the way things are done and we're ensuring that someone else can do that to a particular standard. And then we're hoping that we can sell our wares for more than whatever it costs us to deliver it and do the work. So your business being a collection of systems, I think regardless of what happens with AI and the way that business goes, systems and process will always have a part in business. And once you realize this, you fall in love with the game of business, which really is the game of systems. So it's, yeah, I think the more that you do this and the longer you are in business, the more you start to fall in love with this process, and it is the game. So just because it's getting easier, I I think it's making it more accessible. It's not less accessible for people. I don't think they're going, oh, because it's easy now, I'm not going to do it, but rather more and more people I'm finding are systemizing. I feel like now there's never been a more important and an easier time to do it. And because AI can do so much, the businesses that are winning with AI are the businesses that are very clear with their processes, because you need to go to AI and ask it to do something. So a better question to ask is not, what can AI do for my business? But instead ask, what am I already doing that AI can help me do that faster, cheaper, and better? There's a slight mindset shift between those two, but it will make all the difference in the result that you get from AI.
Mm. And with how you've been sort of speaking, you don't necessarily have to be the person that's, knee deep in these systems. You can literally assign someone within your team to become a systems champion. Maybe walk us through what that actually looks like and, how you came about with this.
So that has been the biggest insight I've had since writing Systemology about 8 years ago. Working with lots of business owners, the ones that are really successful are the ones that identify what we call a systems and AI champion. And they are the team member that helps to build systems culture, to capture best practice, to get the team on board, to help support team members. I mean, it's so important that, that became the topic of my next book, Systems Champion. And this is a manual for the systems champion on what to do. The first book was written for the business owner. The second book is written for the team member who helps the business owner do this. Because I've realized business owners are busy. They're not the best people to systemize. They get distracted at the best of times, and it's easy to take their eye off the ball because they're so distracted. So if we can get someone in the organization whose responsibility and role it is to keep doing this, it just ensures it gets done and ensures that they keep it as a priority. So that's the biggest insight I've had probably over the last few years.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like, yes, people, like you said, can read the book and be like, wouldn't this be nice? And then just put it back in the shelf and then go on to put out whatever fires are there for the day. But if we've got somebody who's hell-bent on bringing those systems to life, I feel like you say, they'll be able to do it. Is this the job of like an operations person, or can this be anybody who can be, sort of promoted from knowing what the business is like? Do you have any sort of suggestions on how this can be played out?
I have actually found it's more effective not to be the operations manager. And the main reason is because of capacity. The operations manager is often already juggling lots of things like the business owner and is already quite full. So we find that with AI now, we can actually have a junior team member take this role as long as they follow the best practice that we outline in the book to make sure they're working on the right things and they're meeting with the knowledgeable team members. But it actually ends up being more effective for that junior team member to work it because they have capacity. And over time, they'll get promoted up and they can move into more senior team member roles. But it's, for the first time in history, it's now more accessible. You don't have to get someone who knows Lean or Six Sigma or is on, $120,000 a year. Like, this can be a junior team member with the right guidance and the right framework, and they can get extraordinary results.
Oh, absolutely. Now, has this been sort of rolled out to certain businesses? Because as you would understand, change is just one of those things that when you start implementing new things within a business, some people might resist because, hey, it's always been done like this around here. And especially if it is a junior person, any sort of...
Yeah. So change is a big part of it. And depending on the team member that takes this role, generally we say the systems champion is not the enforcer. It's not their job to police this. They're just putting all of the foundations in place so that the supervisor and the team leaders then have something to stand on. They can go, hey, this is the way that we do things here, and this is the process that we follow. And it makes it much easier for them to manage. It's not always the job of the systems champion to do that. They're not the systems police. They are the systems champion. So they will do things to build up systems culture to get everybody on board, but it's more about celebrating system wins and focusing on team members who are doing the right thing. That's much easier for them to champion it, and then it can be the leadership team's responsibility to think about how they're going to manage the team members maybe that aren't jumping on board.
But you've created a fail-safe sort of scenario where you can actually bring in the teams or work with them. Could you maybe walk us through how you're actually helping these champions to do and have that sort of either authority or sort of know-how to make those changes?
So we've developed the world's first and only academy for systems and AI champions. So we help business owners find their perfect champion, we help them recruit them, and then they basically put their team member through our training to help direct them and keep them accountable and show them what needs to be done. Because a lot of business owners, they're not the right people to tell systems people what to do because they don't have the skill set on building up systems culture and getting the team on board. So that's really what we do. We help them do that through our Systems Champion Academy. But it starts with the book. There's a tremendous amount in the book to get a systems champion started. So I always say start there first, and then if you want to move a bit quicker and you want some more support, then you might join the academy.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you want to go far, you go alone. But if you want to go further, you go together. And there's also a different way that you run your business because you certify people to be systemologists, right?
Yes. So we mainly realize that a lot of people, they work in one of three ways. They either like to do it themselves, they like to do it in a small group and work together, or they might like one-on-one support where they get an expert to come in. So the book is do it yourself. The Systems Champion Academy is a group program, and the one-on-one, when people work with a systemologist, we have basically certified a range of different business coaches in our methodology, and we connect some clients together if they want to get direct access to someone who can help them one-on-one to help train them and their systems champion. It's the highest level of support. It's obviously the largest investment, but we're finding, some businesses, it's more about speed in the world of AI. They want to go quicker because they see the opportunity.
Absolutely. No, some people will be looking at it and saying, but we've always done things like this. Has there been any sort of turnaround or any client testimonial of somebody who implemented this and they've had a life-changing shift just simply because of this?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with telling our clients stories, and we've got literally hundreds of them on the website. In the book, at the end of every chapter, I'm telling a story about a client. There's depending on the outcome, sometimes it's exiting the business, whether that means taking a holiday or it means selling the business. We had one lady, Diggy Doggy Daycare. She systemized her business, stepped out of the day-to-day, and then sold her business for 8 figures through to pet stock. And she says the systems side of things was a real essential core part of that. We've got people like Gary McMahon is a bushfire management company, and he managed to step away from his business and have his first holiday in 5 years. And he said it was all about systemizing and getting some team members in at the office to be able to handle the workload for him. And he actually said, look, systemology probably saved his marriage, which I love hearing that story because he said, I was just obsessed with business and wasn't making enough time for the family. So systems will only help you get to your outcome quicker. So sometimes, as I said, it's exit. Sometimes it's you might just want to grow and scale more as well. There are other businesses that have been able to get significantly higher bottom line profits and efficiencies by systemizing. I can think of another one, Lyme Therapy. They provide allied health services for people in Mildura, regional Victoria, and they systemized, and many of their tasks got that much more efficient. One, for example, was their wages system. It used to take them a full day, and they got it down to a couple of hours. And there was a whole range of tasks that they did in that therapy business. And what it ended up doing is it meant that they were able to a little over double the capacity of the number of clients that they could take on board without bringing on new headcount, because they were just operating a lot more efficiently, which meant that they could then have their team members doing more time working with clients, less time doing administrative tasks.
Absolutely. And for those that are watching right now and may actually be looking to maybe let go of a few things that they've been doing within their business, where can they go to on the internet, David, to maybe find out more about how they can work with you, or maybe get the copies of your book?
Best place is to head to Amazon, and you can just search for Systems Champion. That's the new book. You'll be able to get to the other books from there. If you're listening to this, you might be an audio person. Good news, there's an audio version of the book. That's a great place to start. And then if you need some extra help, you can go to systemology.com, and on there there's a range of different resources, case studies, and tools to help you do this faster.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, you've gone out of your way to create, the leverage and the freedom that you now have in your business. But my actual question to you is, have you found real freedom?
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
Freedom to choose. That's really what it's all about. I think a lot of business owners don't have the freedom to choose how they work, and they are trapped in it. Now, some business owners, they might want to keep doing their work. They might want to work in it, on it, out of it, however you want to work. True freedom comes from choice. So you need to find something that you love, and you need to be working on that. And then you need the ability to be able to at least disconnect when the time is right. When you want to have that 3 weeks off over Christmas, when you want to do a winter getaway, like you want to build the business that supports the lifestyle that you want to lead. I'm not necessarily suggesting, like some people, it's not just about doing nothing. You want to feel fulfilled in the work that you do, and you want to have that freedom of choice. I feel like that's what it's all about.
I like that. So you not only were selling pieces of the MCG, you're now just selling people back to themselves, because if you can actually give people their freedom and be able to be back home in time for dinner with those that they absolutely love, that's literally giving people the gift that they never thought they had.
I feel like business owners, they're some of the hardest working individuals, the most underappreciated for what it is that they do. They don't get the support that they need. They oftentimes don't have someone that they can talk to, yet they are making some of the biggest impact. So I've always connected with business owners, and I'm drawn to serving them because I'm a business owner and I understand it and I get it. So I try and give back to the business owners the support that I wish I had. And that's really what drives me. I love, as I said, I'm obsessed with telling our client stories. I love getting case studies and hearing from different clients. And that's really what drives me when I go, wow, my work is touching other business owners and making a difference.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, we've established all this thread of who you've been and what it is that you're working on. But what's next, David? What can we celebrate that you're working on now that you've brought us into your world?
I am going through the journey of being the best example of what it is that I teach. So some of the earlier businesses I was involved in, we start them, we grow them, we systemize them, and then it ends up getting sold. And I've done that quite a number of times. And at various parts in that journey, you play different roles. So when Systemology was first getting off the ground, it was all about getting the framework right, getting the first few clients, getting through the door, building that initial machine. Then we start to systemize it, and then my role starts to change. I almost become more of a champion of the business, and I'm out there doing podcasts and talking and writing books, and because that's a big part of what it is that I enjoy. And then it's just a matter of, as we start to scale it, thinking a little bit about, what that next chapter looks like. We will build the business to be sold, not necessarily to sell it, but I know that businesses that are sellable are just better businesses. They're more profitable. You want to build a business as though you're going to sell it, even if you don't sell it, because that's how you remove key person dependency. That's how you move it beyond the founder and making something that's truly scalable. So I'm in that journey at the moment where we're kind of making sure that I'm sitting in the right seat and adding the right value and building something that is really attractive for someone one day.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's a really good thing for any business, because if you're going to be building something that someone would want to add as an asset in their portfolio, then they don't want to be working within that business, and it has to be fully operational. And as you have said, a business is a profitable endeavor that actually works without you. So I would think a lot of people are not quite running a business. They actually have glorified hobbies out there. Ouch as it may sound, but I think this was a wake-up call a lot of people needed. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, an absolute pleasure, Prosper. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Now, if you're listening to this and you've ever thought, I can't take a holiday, my business might not be there when I come back, then I think this was the wake-up call that a lot of us really needed, because not only has David shown us that freedom doesn't come from working harder, it actually comes from building smarter systems that work without you. And especially if you're building the business, in order for you to actually sell it on, even if you're not going to be selling it, it actually puts you in that framework that would somebody want this if I was going to sell it to them. So I think if that hit home, you want to grab yourself a copy of this book, SYSTEMology, on Amazon, and also just visit systemology.com. and start building a business that's actually profitable and enjoyable, because there's no point in you building something that, the moment you close the door, everything is falling back like, Lego bricks or like things like that. So if you found value in this conversation, I encourage you to share this with a business owner who's already looking to break free from the grind, and you might actually just change their life. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do with this information. David, thank you so much once again for sharing this with us today. And for those that are watching, until next time, bye for now.